This is Larry Bonerato from LarryOnLearning.com, and today's Morning Minute is entitled When the Smoke Cleared. How we respond in crisis becomes our legacy. War is never clean. It is grim, loud, and suffocating, full of tragedy and human suffering. The War of 1812 began over trade restrictions, territorial ambition, and the British practice of seizing American sailors, forcing them to serve on British ships. For the young United States, it was a fight for sovereignty. For Great Britain, it was leverage during their war against Napoleon. In August of 1814, British forces marched into Washington, D.C., burning the Capitol building and the White House. This humiliation was visible as the smoke rose over the city. Then British forces moved toward Baltimore. If Baltimore fell, American resistance along the eastern seaboard could collapse, and guarding the harbor stood Fort McHenry. The land around the fort was marshy with sandy wetlands that made a ground assault both difficult and deadly. Instead, the British chose a massive naval bombardment. They positioned their ships beyond the range of American guns and commenced firing. Before the attack began, a young American lawyer boarded a British ship under a flag of truce to negotiate the release of American prisoners. Their condition was heartbreaking. They were confined in the damp, dark hold of a warship, below deck with little ventilation and with sickness spreading. The smell of dying men and disease lingered constantly. War had reduced these once strong men to exhausted and weak captives. The lawyers successfully secured their release, however. Because he overheard British attack plans, they would not allow him to leave until after the battle. Thus he watched as the bombardment began. Hundreds of rockets streaked across the sky. Mortar shells arced high before plunging into the fort. Nearly 1,800 rounds were fired at that fort over 25 relentless hours. Inside Fort McHenry were roughly 1,000 defenders, soldiers, militia, and volunteers. Even though they knew they were outgunned, they understood that failure was not an option. They heard the shriek of incoming rockets, the concussion of exploding shells, and the walls shuddering under repeated impacts. Casualties mounted, yet they held their positions. Between barrages, they manned cannon to defend against an impending ground assault. They endured, knowing that surrender would open the harbor to invasion. Through the night filled with smoke and fire, one symbol remained visible, an American flag flying above the ramparts. At times it disappeared behind smoke and debris. Each time the smoke cleared, it was still there, tattered and torn, but still flying. The defenders were fighting for what that flag represented: sovereignty, self-government, and the fragile idea of a free nation. At dawn, when the fog lifted, the flag still flew, and the fort had held. The young lawyer who witnessed the event from the deck of the British warship began writing words on the back of a letter. His name was Francis Scott Key, and the poem he penned became the Star Spangled Banner. Under extreme pressure, symbolism matters. Under extreme pressure, leadership matters. And under extreme pressure, endurance becomes an identity. The defenders of Fort McHenry, against all odds, simply and courageously held their ground. Today, families across our nation know that war is still grim, costly, and full of sacrifice. Leadership under extreme difficulty does not remove the hardship. It gives people something worth enduring that hardship for. Same pressure, different posture, and different results. How we respond under great difficulty or extreme danger still defines who we are. This is Larry Bonerato from LarryOnLearning.com, and that is today's Morning Minute.